Hi everyone, Luke here from Weekend Tour Pros. You're joining me today in the studio at City Golf in Chichester for another budget-friendly golf ball review. This time we're taking Callaway's offering one of the best-selling golf balls in the market today, the Callaway Supersoft. Now Callaway claim that this golf ball is super long, super straight and super soft. So we'll put all three of those claims to the test today, and for benchmarking purposes we'll see how it performs against the #1 ball in golf, the Titleist Pro V1, to see what benefits there are or what trade-offs there are playing a budget-friendly golf ball like the Callaway Supersoft against the premium golf ball, the #1 ball in golf, the Titleist Pro V1. Let's get stuck in. Right, so before we start hitting shots, always like to tell you a little bit about the construction and expected performance characteristics of the golf ball that we're testing today, the Callaway Supersoft. Now, interestingly, there's not too much information on Callaway's website and in their press kind of media releases that tell us exactly how this golf ball is going to perform. So I've had to kind of read between the lines and put what I'm expecting to happen, and then we'll obviously validate that as part of our concluding thoughts. In terms of its construction, it is a two-piece hybrid cover construction. Callaway have got this unique hybrid cover they're using on a lot of their kind of mid and budget friendly golf balls at the moment. In terms of feel, they do promise a very soft feel, and that is backed up in the compression rating of 47. That is absolutely one of the lowest compression ratings you can get in a golf ball at the moment, but interestingly it is 11 points higher than the previous version of this golf ball that was a 36 compression. That was the 2019 variant. In terms of ball flight, I'm expecting it to deliver quite a high launching, high ball flight, because that's what I normally see in this type of golf ball, with low long game spin in the driver and the 7-iron, and also then maybe low to mid short game spin. It's not going to grab as quickly as something like a Pro V1. In terms of colour options, you've got white, you've got yellow, you've got orange, red, pinks. There's loads of colour options, and there's also some of the unique offerings that Callaway offer from time to time with the different patterns on their golf ball as well. And in terms of price point, it retails at £24.99 in the UK. And as you can see from the data on screen, you can see how all of those things compare to the Pro V1 that we're putting it head to head against today. Right, without further ado, let's start hitting shots and see how this golf ball performs. Right, so first shot with the Callaway Supersoft in this 60-degree wedge, 20-yard pitch shot. Let's see how it feels and how it performs. God, incredibly dull sound, very, very soft off the face. Felt like it wanted to jump off the face as well, actually, which is really interesting. I could notice that feel straight away. Does seem to want to pop up quite high as well. That one came out a tiny bit lower. I know when I test a lot of these kind of softer feeling golf balls, I always comment on how dull and how soft they feel. And it has been, a month or so since I've tested golf balls, but this does feel really, really soft off this part of the face. The sound it's making is just, you can hardly notice it versus like the clippiness of a Pro V1, which hopefully the camera will pick up in a minute when we get to those shots. Popped off the face again. So I always say this when I'm doing these videos, I am the biggest variable in this test, but I always think it shows up the most in this sort of short game shot because of my ability to consistently hit the same shot with the same strike. So we always have to bear that in mind in this part of the test, and that's where averages are always helpful to us. Definitely felt like I nipped that one, like picked it a little bit cleaner. I do enjoy pitching with it though. Again, that hotness off the face, you might have to get used to if you're not used to a golf ball that comes off that hot. But in terms of feels, in terms of sounds, it's nice. Really have nipped that. I'd hope the spin is up a little bit on that one. It is. Right, let's baseline some numbers with the Pro V1 to compare against. Okay, so done hitting the 20-yard pitch shot with a 60-degree wedge. First impressions in the bay, the feel of that Supersoft is definitely living up to its name. It is incredibly soft feeling. It sounds incredibly dull off the face. You can hardly even hear it making a sound as club and ball come into contact. There's none of that clippiness that you get from the Pro V1 or any of the more firmer golf balls on the market. So if you do like that sort of real soft, dull sounding golf ball, definitely going to get that with the Callaway Supersoft. In terms of off the face, it did feel really, really hot, so I'm keen to look at sort of smash factor numbers when we get home as well, because it did feel like it was just flying off the face and delivering quite a bit of easy distance, which I'm excited for as we move up to the rest of the bag. But let's go home and let's look at those short game numbers. So those of you that have watched my channel for some time are probably fed up of hearing me say this, but it just bears repeating. This is exactly why I do my ball reviews in this way. I like to give you my first impressions and feels in the bay, and then come home and objectively look at the data side by side to see if that changes my views. And one of the things you just heard me say in the bay is I felt like the Callaway Supersoft was really hot and flying off the face. And if we start by taking a look at the data, you can see that my club head speeds and my ball speeds very, very similar with both these golf balls, as were the smash factors. I was expecting the smash factor to be a little bit higher with the Supersoft to reflect the fact that it felt like it was jumping off the face a little bit more. So that's probably more to do with the cover of the golf ball and how it felt rather than actually anything in the performance. Now in terms of the spin rate, it's absolutely no surprise to me to see that the Callaway Supersoft is a lower spinning golf ball in this part of the test at 4093 versus 4570. But one thing that is interesting is, like much of the other budget friendly golf balls that I've reviewed on the channel, we do see a slightly more loopier, higher launching, steeper landing ball flight with the budget friendly golf ball, the Callaway Supersoft, versus a slightly more penetrating ball flight that we get with the Titleist Pro V1. Now the interesting thing, and again this is a pattern I've seen on a number of videos now, is when you take that slightly loopier ball flight with that slightly lower spin, it actually balances out against the higher spinning, more penetrating ball flight of the Pro V1. And what we can do here is demonstrate that with the stopping power of these two golf balls. That's the difference between the carry number and the total number, so how much rollout you're getting when this golf ball would land on the green. With the Supersoft it was only 4.7 yards versus 4.6 with the Pro V1. So in terms of playing both these golf balls on this type of shot, you would not notice any difference on how quickly these golf balls stopped on the green. They would just be achieving it in a slightly different way from one ball to the other. A really good start from the Supersoft. Let's see if that continues with the pitching wedges. Let's start the pitching wedges with the Callaway Supersoft. Things we're looking for in this part of the test: is it any longer, that super long claim that Callaway make? Does it still feel soft? And what happens to the ball flight and the spin rates with a pitching wedge? I have to take the gilet off, starting to get warm. I wouldn't say it's, again at the moment, it's not feeling like it's effortlessly long, but it's also not short, you know, it is delivering some good numbers. That one felt nice as well. It does feel really nice, I do like the feel of it. Best one yet, I think, with the Supersoft. The ball flight seems like it's launching and going a little bit higher, particularly on a good strike like that, than I would expect to normally see. So that might offset the sort of slight reduction in spin and still give us that ability to stop it. That's great. That's probably a little bit closed face, but I'd prefer to see that. Wow. That's a bit of a flyer. I don't know what's happened with that one. Its spin has dropped to 3.312 and the carry's jumped up by about 10 yards as a result. That is super long, but I don't think that's a good thing. That felt nice. Okay, he's just done hitting the Callaway Supersoft with those pitching wedges compared to that Pro V1. First impressions in the bay are, I didn't necessarily notice it was super long in this part of the test or necessarily super straight, because ultimately my delivery was overriding it, but I definitely did enjoy hitting it, much like on that short game shot. So really keen to go home and look at the numbers side by side versus the Pro V1. Let's do that now. Right, let's deep dive into the data from those pitching wedges. Now, starting on the left-hand side, you can see that my club head speed, ball speeds, and the smash factors virtually identical with both these golf balls, so they are similar speed golf balls in this part of the test. Once again, we can see a consistent pattern with the short game shot, where the Callaway Supersoft is spinning about 10% less than that Pro V1 at 6.838 versus 7.575. The reason I've not marked the Supersoft in red here like I did with the short game shot is at 6.838, it definitely isn't one of the lowest spinning golf balls that I've tested in this part of the test, so it is probably a little bit closer to the sort of bottom middle end of the road, and therefore maybe deserving of an amber rating rather than a red. But again, for you to determine if you think that's too low spinning. In terms of ball flights, we've seen the ball flights that we saw with the short game shot exaggerated a lot more in the pitching wedge. The launch angle, the peak height and the land angle are all significantly higher with the Callaway Supersoft. And I must admit, although I've not given one of these ball flights a red, amber, green rating, that's ultimately because I think it's for you to determine which is best for you and which one you prefer. For me personally, I would take the ball flight of the Supersoft all day. I am a low hitting golf ball player naturally, and I'm always looking for a little bit more land angle, and the Supersoft is giving me that in this part of the test. And just to bring that to life for you, if I show you the side-on view of the trajectories, you can see all those yellow lines representing the shots with the Supersoft. It's consistently higher and that fraction steeper as it landed too. Now, what does that all mean in terms of carry distance and again that stopping power onto the green? Well, we can see in terms of carry distance that the Callaway Supersoft was about 1.3 yards longer in this part of the test. Nothing too significant, but it definitely is worth calling out. But in terms of that stopping power, that combination of that higher, more steeper landing ball flight with that fraction less spin is once again keeping up with the Pro V1 at 5.2 yards versus 5.1 yards. So in terms of these two golf balls stopping on the green, you just wouldn't notice a difference. The final thing to call out is Callaway talk about the Supersoft being super straight. Now I do think a couple of shots here are skewing the data and that dispersion ring is looking a little bit worse, but you can see here that ultimately my delivery is overriding anything that this golf ball can do here, and the Pro V1 is actually a slightly tighter dispersion than the Supersoft. The one thing to call out is that longest shot with the Supersoft was a little bit of a flyer. The spin rate dropped really down and the ball shot out. Now I've never ever seen that on TrackMan with any other golf ball that I've tested. I don't know if it's due to the conditions on the day where it was -3 in the bay and maybe just got a skewed reading from TrackMan, but I didn't get any readings like that with the Pro V1 on the day. So it's not me saying that this golf ball's got any negative performance, it's just an interesting observation to call out. Right, let's move up to the 7-irons. 7-irons with the Supersoft. Keen to see here if we get any extra distance, what happens to spin rates, what happens to ball flights, what happens to stopping power on the green. Let's test all of those claims. 145 yards of carry and 40 on the spin, so not anywhere longer on that first hit, but definitely spinning a little bit lower. Yet another one, very similar speed again, very similar distance. Fastest one yet with the Supersoft. It's the first one I think today that we've seen jump over that 150 carry number. Another one that's carried over the 150, but again it's due to that reduction in spin. We're starting to see spin numbers begin with 3s, and that's not my preference with a 7-iron. Again, you know, winter, soft conditions, it's absolutely probably what you want, but in the summer I probably would start to worry me a little bit how much of a drop-off we're seeing. 106.4 is fast. Even that, which isn't a great hit, it's definitely longer. It's just, like I say, I think it's doing it through a reduction in spin, and what we've got to just be careful of is we don't get so excited by that distance that we then lose all control of the golf ball. Look at that, that's huge. That's a really nice one to finish on with the Supersoft. Right, let's baseline some 7-irons with the Pro V1. Okay, so done hitting the 7-irons with the Supersoft there. First impressions in the bay, it still feels really, really soft. It is delivering a little bit of extra distance, I think a couple of yards. It's doing that through a reduction in spin, so we need to look at the data when we go home and just see what we are giving up in terms of getting that extra couple of yards. The one thing I do want to call out is I have noticed that the paint on one side of the ball, the Callaway logo, has started to wear off a little bit. So normally you do find with a two-piece golf ball, they're quite durable. It could just be a little bit of paint and there's no other marks on the ball otherwise, so nothing to impact its performance, but just worth calling out that I'm not seeing that on the brand new Pro V1 that I'm also using today. Right, let's go home and let's look at the data. Right, let's deep dive into those 7-iron numbers. Now, once again, we can see that my club head speed, ball speeds and smash factors are all very, very similar with both of these golf balls. And I think it's fair to say this far into the test that they are similar speed golf balls based on the numbers that we've seen. Once again, we are seeing the Supersoft is a lower spinning golf ball than the Pro V1. The reason I've marked it red this time though is unlike the other two parts of the test that we've done so far where there was a 10% drop off, this time we are closer to a 20% drop off in the spin rate with the Supersoft, and that is quite a significant drop off in the 7-iron versus what we saw in the other parts of the test. Now, one thing that is really interesting with the 7-irons is the ball flights for the first time are virtually identical. Those launch angles, those peak heights and those land angles, there's not too much between these two golf balls here, and that does give us a slight problem. With the other two parts of the test, we did have the benefit of a slightly stronger, higher, steeper land angle to offset that reduced spin. We don't have that this time, and as a result, what you're about to see is we get significantly more rollout with the Supersoft, and it just won't stop as quickly on the green. Yes, it is longer through the air at 148.8 yards versus 146.1 with the Pro V1, so about 2.7 yards of additional carry distance, but we can see it also rolls out at 12.2 yards, about 2.2 yards more than the 10 yards with the Pro V1. That's 22% more rollout. Now, to most of you watching this video, you'll say, Luke, 2.2 yards, I'm just not going to notice that out on the golf course, and the Supersoft is almost half the price of the Pro V1. I think I'm happy to give that little bit up, and I totally understand that, and I also think this could be a great golf ball to play during the winter months when golf courses are a bit softer and everything stops a little bit quicker anyway, but I just need to call out that that is the first time we've noticed that little bit of difference between these two golf balls. Final thing to call out with the 7-irons is the dispersion circles. Again, as always, one or two shots can really influence these dispersion circles, and it's done here with that one shot that went a little bit further and that one shot that went a little bit too far right. But it's just worth again reminding ourselves that Callaway do claim this golf ball is super straight, and we can see that in this part of the test, the Pro V1 has delivered a slightly tighter left to right dispersion circle than the Supersoft. Right, let's finish up with the drivers. Right, let's finish up with some drivers with the Supersoft. This will be really interesting to see the super long, super straight claims that Callaway make about this golf ball and see if it delivers. Now, first one out of the gate probably wasn't my best strike, so we'll use that not as the judgment, but ball speed of 130 is on the lower side for me. I'm expecting to see kind of 132, 133 on a good hit. If I get anything over 135, that's an unbelievable strike or speed. Now, the one thing I would say is it is knocking the spin down a little bit, which is not a bad thing. That high launch, low spin you're always wanting with driver, and it is giving me some distance that's good for the ball speeds I'm getting. 208 yards there off a 129 ball speed is good, but what we would love to see is that it also delivers 4 or 5 mile an hour of ball speed plus that low spin, and then we get the full package. Let's try again. 132, mustn't have been as good a hit because we've actually not hit it as far. 205, it mustn't have been as good a strike, but the ball speed was a bit better that time. 132. So struggling at the moment to see that it's super long. So just done hitting the drivers with the Callaway Supersoft. First impressions in the bay is I don't think it is super long in this part of the test. We'll have to check the data to see if it's super straight. I definitely feel like it's delivering a little bit less ball speed, but let's go home and look at the numbers side by side versus that Pro V1. Right, let's finish up with a deep dive on the data from those driver shots. Now, starting on the left-hand side, you can see that my club head speed was a fraction slower with the Callaway Supersoft at 90.8 versus 91.5, but that doesn't equate to a 3.6 mile an hour difference in ball speed, and as a result, you can see the smash factor is down with the Supersoft versus the Pro V1. Now, that could be down to a little bit of my quality of strike, but if you just bear with me and see the dispersion circles at the end of this section, you'll see that actually I hit these shots quite well, so I do think it might be that the Callaway Supersoft is a slightly slower golf ball with the driver in my hands, but nothing too significant. Now in terms of drivers, they're always talking about high launch, low spin, and we can see the Callaway Supersoft did deliver a higher launch and a lower spin than the Titleist Pro V1. The reason I've not marked it in green is there'll be an optimal launch and optimal spin conditions with the driver for every single one of you guys watching down the lens. For me personally, I probably actually benefit a little bit more from the spin and the launch of the Pro V1, but there'll be plenty of you who do need a bit more launch and a little bit less spin and would absolutely benefit from the Callaway Supersoft here. So I've put them both in black because it's for you to determine which is best. Now, if we introduce the peak heights and the land angles, what we can ultimately see is that the ball flight package overall with the driver is very, very similar with both of these golf balls and following the pattern that we saw with the 7-iron. So what we can definitely say is as you move up through the bag, the two ball flights here are very, very similar. As you move down the bag, you do get that slightly stronger ball flight with the Supersoft that I preferred in that part of the bag. Now, what does that all mean in terms of distance? Well, we can see that the Supersoft was 3 yards shorter in terms of carry and in terms of total. Now, again, if my club head speeds were equal, we might see that come down to a couple of yards, but we can definitely say the Pro V1 was longer in my hands in this test, and therefore we can't say that the Callaway Supersoft is super long in this part of the test, although it was longer with the 7-iron and with the pitching wedge. Final thing to show you is that dispersion circle. We can certainly say in this part of the test that it was super straight. Just look how tight that dispersion circle is with that batch of drivers versus the Pro V1. And I think the overriding point here is that my delivery as a handicap golfer ultimately overrides the kind of straightness of any golf ball, because we saw the Pro V1 was straighter in the pitching wedge and the 7-irons. We've seen that the Supersoft was straighter in this part of the test. So ultimately, I think your delivery is going to override that. But what I would say is throughout the test, there's not one shot I've hit with either of these golf balls that's gone massively off the planet, and that does give me confidence with both the golf balls. Right, that leads me really nicely into my concluding thoughts. So for my concluding thoughts on the Callaway Supersoft golf ball, I'm going to go back to those 3 claims that Callaway make about this golf ball that we've talked about all the way through the video. Super soft, super long, super straight. Now we can definitely give a big tick in the box of super soft. This golf ball definitely is one of the softest golf balls that I've tested on the channel, and definitely one of the softest feeling golf balls available on the market today. So if you like a soft feeling golf ball, I definitely think you'll enjoy the feel of the Callaway Supersoft. In terms of that claim that it's super long, well, we've been able to see during this test in my hands that with the pitching wedge and the 7-iron, it was a fraction longer than the Pro V1, 1 yard with the pitching wedge, a couple of yards with the 7-iron. So I wouldn't necessarily say it was super long, but it was a little bit longer in that part of the bag. The one thing we do need to call out though is that when we moved up to driver, we did lose a couple of yards with the driver versus the Pro V1. So the question mark I would have is, over the course of 18 holes using all of the clubs in your bag, would you actually see any noticeable difference in distance? Because you might gain a couple of yards on your approach shot, but you might be a little bit further back off of the tee. Now the one thing I would say is I definitely think if you've got a slower swing speed than me, you might get a little bit more distance if you're playing a particularly firmer golf ball at the moment, because you'll be able to compress this golf ball a little bit more. But I definitely think it's for you to do your own testing on that and not be completely put off by the numbers that I've seen in this video. The final claim that Callaway make is that it's super straight. Now throughout the video I've interpreted super straight as ultimately left to right dispersion versus my target line, because ultimately as a golfer all I care about is how close to the hole is my golf ball after the shot that I've just hit. Now in that context I definitely can't claim that the Callaway Supersoft is necessarily super straight, because we saw in 2 of the 3 tests that the Pro V1 delivered a tighter dispersion circle than the Callaway Supersoft, albeit the Supersoft was straighter with the driver. However, if we flip that interpretation on its head a little bit and think about super straight in terms of ball curvature, so that kind of slice correction or that hook correction, then I've also had a little look at that data as well, and I can confirm that the Callaway Supersoft is quite a straight golf ball in that context, but again it wasn't any straighter than the Pro V1 in the batch of shots that I hit during this video. But is it a super straight golf ball? Yeah, sometimes it's quite a straight golf ball, and I definitely think there is maybe a bit of benefit if you've got a really exaggerated slice or a really exaggerated hook. You might get a bit of benefit from playing this golf ball over something that's spinning a little bit too much for you. Now despite those conclusions, this is not me saying that this is a bad golf ball. I actually think it's a really good golf ball at a fantastic price point that comes in lots of brilliant colour options that will appeal to so many golfers out there, particularly the juniors as well. I think they'll really enjoy playing this golf ball. I do think it will probably appeal to two types of golfer. The higher handicap golfer who's looking to consistently play the same golf ball every time, who loves that super soft feel. I definitely think this golf ball will appeal to you, particularly if you're still losing your golf balls quite a lot. You'll definitely not be as put off by the price point. And I also think it could be a great winter ball option for the slightly better player who doesn't mind losing that little bit of spin during the winter when the greens are a bit softer and the ball's stopping a little bit quicker as well. And this golf ball, like I said at the beginning, is one of the most popular best-selling golf balls on the market today, and I absolutely understand why so many golfers across a wide spectrum enjoy this golf ball. Now, all that's left for me to say is if you like this video, please do smash that thumbs up button. It really does help other like-minded golfers to find my content on YouTube. And if you are not yet subscribed to Weekend Tour Pros, go on, hit that button down below, ring that bell icon, and you'll get notified of all my videos when they land on the channel. All that's left to say is thanks for watching, have a great day, goodbye.